सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मिष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So, in this portion, beginning from verse 66 up to verse 73, Acharya is propounding the most significant topic of Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. So, of this Brahma Satyam, Brahman is the absolute reality, has been explained in verse 67. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Vishuddham Param Svatas Siddham Nityanandaika Rasam Pratyagabinnam Nirantaram Jayati. So there was only one verse where we discussed Brahma Satyam. The statement, the mantra was, this verse was based on the Taittiriya mantra. The second part after this is Jagat Mithya. The world is less real than Brahman and it is only an empirical reality, not the absolute reality. This topic is elaborately discussed from 68 to 73. Because one of the most difficult topics to digest is the unreality of the world. And in support of this, Shankaracharya in verse 69 gave a Shruti Pramanam in the form of Mundaka Upanishad 2:11, right? Which says, Brahmai Vedam Amritam Purastat Brahma Paschat Brahma Dakshinataschotarena Adaschodvam cha prasutam Brahmai Vedam Vishwamidam Varishtam. So this verse was based on that, and on the Mundaka mantra, we saw that what you look upon as the world is nothing but Brahman alone. Other than Brahman, there is no such thing called world. So Brahman alone is appearing as the world. It is just an appearance, not a fact. Then in verse 71, right, having given the support of Shruti Pramanam, Shankaracharya gave the Smriti Pramanam, the Bhagavad Gita. In support of this, he took verses 4 and 5 of chapter 9, right? Maya tadamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina matstani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha nacha matstani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhuta bhrinnacha bhutastaha mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. So basically you have to take the matstani sarva bhutani until nacha matstani bhutani. So here in this verse we saw the connection with the Gita, the references with the Gita. So idam sarvam jagat, all the things and beings, in short, the pluralistic world is located in me. Matstani. Matstani means mai tishtanti. It is in me. Okay. Located in me. Nachaham teshva vastitaha, but I am not located in the pluralistic world. The pluralistic world is located in me, right? So it's exactly like saying water is in the pot, pot is not in the water, right? So thus in the fourth verse, the second line, basically, so Lord Krishna has introduced two things. One, Bhagavan is himself, right? Not fourth verse, in this verse, right? So Lord Krishna has introduced two things. That is, Bhagavan is himself and the world is located in him. In the Gita, fourth verse and the fifth verse of the 9th chapter, this is what is being talked about by Krishna, right? So the world is located in him, right? In the fifth verse, Krishna says, he contradicts this by saying, Nacha mastani bhutani. Really speaking, the world is not located in me. So how do you resolve this contradiction? We can resolve it only in one way. We can say, the world is just an appearance, not a reality, but it is experientially available as though located in Bhagavan. So on inquiry, the world will turn out to be mithya, which means as good as non-existent. Exactly like the dream world is located in us That is our experience during dream. In dream, the dream world is very much real, right? We will not accept that it is mithya. In the same way, this world is also mithya, not satyam. We accept the experienceability of the world, but we don't accept the reality of the world. So this is what Acharya says, Ishvaro vastu tattvajnaha. So Bhagavan Krishna says so, and you cannot doubt his knowledge and wisdom. Vastu tattvajnaha. He knows the nature of himself, right? So basically, you have to resolve the contradiction by saying it is experientially available. Iti evam eva vyachiklipat. In this manner, the unreality of the world, Lord Krishna indirectly presented. Evam eva. In this manner, vyachiklipat. He right? So now, as I said, in the next verse, Acharya is going to give us basically the logical pramana, right? So we have completed up to this. Now we'll proceed to verse 72. Yadi satyam bhaved vishvam.
Yadi satyam bhaved vishvam.
Sushupta upalabhyatam.
Sushupta upalabhyatam.
Yannopalabhyate kinchid.
Yannopalabhyate kinchid.
Ato satsvapnavan mrisha.
Ato satsvapnavan mrisha.
So here Acharya is giving an argument which is taken from the Mandukya Karika, second chapter. Mandukya Karika, second chapter is called Vaitatya Prakaranam, right? In which there is a very important verse, the sixth verse. Adavante cha yannasti vartamanepi tatata vitataih sadrisha santo vitata iva lakshitaha. So the meaning of this is that which does not exist in the beginning and in the end is so in the middle also. Even though they are identical with unreal objects, they are regarded, right, as though real. So basically it says the world exists only temporarily, appearing briefly and disappearing, like a pot which was not there before its production and which will not be there after its destruction. So basically there was only clay before creation of the pot, during the presence of the pot, and after the destruction of the pot. Trikale api tishtati. Only clay is there in all three periods of time. Vacharambanam vikaro namadeyam Chandogya Upanishad says that idea alone here Gaudapadacharya borrows and then it is presented here. The dream is also temporarily only existing. It appears for us only during the Swapna Avastha. Before the dream was not there. After we wake up, it is not there, right? So dream is unreal. It is agama apayi, subject to arrival and departure, right? So it's a very important mantra from the Vaitatya Prakaranam, which is, it is being based on that and the logic is being built around it. So based on this, Acharya makes a vyapti. A vyapti means a generalization, right? Yat agama payi, tat mithya. Agama payitvat, swapnavat, gatavat. Like the pot, like the dream, whatever is subject to arrival and departure is unreal. That is the meaning. So Jagrat Prapancha, this universe also is subject to arrival and departure. That is, we can prove it experientially also. Experientially, only in Jagrat Avastha, this world is available. When I am in sleep, the world is not there. When I am in dream also, this world is not there. It disappears from sleep. It disappears from the dream also. So the waker's universe is thus subject to arrival and departure. This is experiential. Now, scientifically also, if you see, the universe is subject to birth and death. Before the Big Bang, it was not there. After some time, it will disintegrate. So, Shastra also talks about Shrishti and Pralayam. Therefore, the world is mithya, like dream, subject to appearance in waking and disappearance in sleeping. Right? Therefore, Acharya says, Yadi Vishwam Satyam Bhaved, if the universe were real, like the Atma, Sushuptau Upalabhyatam. Sushuptau Upalabhyatam, meaning it should be experienced in deep sleep state also. But what is our Anubhava? We don't experience the world either in Swapnavastha or Sushupti Avastha. Both Jagrat Prapancha and Swapna Prapancha, along with time and space, are subject to arrival and departure. Whereas the witness consciousness is there all the time, right? In all these avasthas. Therefore, yat na kinchit upalabhyate. Yat means, right? Nothing is experienced in Sushupti. Since, right? Since nothing is experienced in Sushupti, including the Jagrat Prapancha, ataha asat swapnavat mrisha. Ataha, therefore swapnavat, right? Like the dream, it is mrisha, right? Mrisha is mithya, basically. So this also must be considered unreal only. Thus, both waking and dream appear real only in their respective states, but both of them resolve in Sushupti. So both must be treated equally as unreal only. Then what is real? Only Brahman. Brahma Satyam alone is real since it is there in all the three periods of time as the Karanam, the cause. That alone is real. Ataha Asat. Other than that, everything is unreal. So in this context, the word Asat means unreal. Asat means non-existent also. But here we should take it as unreal, not non-existent, right? When you say Sat, it is existence, but here it is, we are taking it as unreal, right? So, Ataha Asat Swapnavat Mrisha. So, Mrisha means Mithya, right? Mithya and Swapnavat, like the dream. Now, Acharya concludes the Jagan Mithyatva topic, the unreality of the world, right? He's going to conclude that in verse 73. अतः पृथङ् नास्ति जगत्परात्मनः
अतः पृथङ् नास्ति जगत्परात्मनः
पृथक् प्रतीतिस्तु मृषा गुणा हिवत्
पृथक् प्रतीतिस्तु मृषा गुणा हिवत्
आरोपितस्यास्ति किमर्थवत्ता
आरोपितस्यास्ति किमर्थवत्ता
अधिष्ठानमाभाति तथा भ्रमेण
अधिष्ठानमाभाति तथा भ्रमेण.
Okay. So now therefore ataha, right? The conclusion is coming. Shruti pramana, smriti pramana, yukti pramanaihi. Through all these pramanams, Jagat Paramatmanaha Pritang Nasti. World doesn't have an independent existence or independent reality of its own, but it merely appears to be independently existent, right? So independently real. That is not a fact, right? So Pramanataha Pritak, separate from Paramatma. That's Panchami here. Pritak means separately, right? Pritak Nasti. Right? Separately, it doesn't exist. But Pritak Pratiti Hitu, it appears to be independently and separately existent. That seeming reality is just an appearance, Mrisha. It is not true. Like the dream example, it is existent. Guna Ahivat Mrisha. Here, Acharya gives a beautiful example, which is a very, very popular example of Vedanta. And I've always wondered where exactly this example comes from. It is used so much, right? Exactly like what it is used. So the example appears in Vivekachudamani straight that way. Guna Ahivat Mrisha, right? We'll see the meaning. Guna Hivat. Gunaha means Rajjuhu, a rope. So the word guna has several meanings. An attribute is called guna. It's the popular meaning. But the word guna here is a rope. And ahihi means sarpaha, a snake. Therefore, guna ahihi means rajju sarpaha, rope snake, right? So I thought people who are interested might want to know the Amarakosha reference of where it is called that way. So therefore, I put it here, right? Rajju is called gunaha. So rope snake is independently existent or not. The very word rope snake, right? Hopefully all of you have heard this example. Basically, a snake which is superimposed on a rope. So suppose a rope is lying on the ground and there is twilight or semi-darkness, right? Then you know there is something and it is bent also. It is about 4 or 5 feet long and is also sufficiently thick, right? So it is not very clear because there's not enough light. So you mistake it as a snake. And so until I know it is a rope, I'm going to perceive a snake on that rope. So that snake is basically an unreal snake. It's a projected snake, a false snake. And that false snake is called gunahihi. But the false snake is understood as false snake only after looking at the rope closely with the help of an additional light like a torchlight. Then after using a proper light, I get convinced that it's only a rope and that there is no snake. So snake was merely an appearance and does not have any existence separate from or independent from the rope. All this I know only after realizing the rope as rope. Adhishtana jnana anantaram. Only after I know the adhishtanam. So the support of the false snake. So until that knowledge takes place, a person who has committed the mistake and was not yet known during the intermediary gap, right? He knows that, he thinks that it is the snake, right? So whether it is 1 hour, 2 hours, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, he is profusely sweating, right? So because he believes that it is the snake. So he never thinks of it as a dependently existent snake. For him, it is independently existing and it is real. He is having shivers, he is having trembles, right? So an unreal snake can create fear, anxiety, etc. Right? So basically, what is this? Now, when a guru comes along and holds a torchlight and shows the rope, right? He gains the knowledge of the adhishtana. Then only he is relaxed, understands that the snake is only an appearance, not a reality. Similarly, Acharya says, we feel the whole world is real and independently existent until we know the Adhishtanam Brahma. Then when a guru comes along and switches on the torchlight or flashlight, Shruti Pramanam, basically Vedanta Pramanam, and says, the Adhishtanam for the world is nothing but Brahman. Then and then alone, he understands that the world appears real. It is really not real. World appears independently existent, but not really so. So thus, until one gains knowledge, right, the world is real. Swakale satyavat bhati. Only for an adhishtana jnani, a Brahma jnani, an awakened person, the world is unreal. Therefore, to a layman, if a jnani says the world is unreal, he will protest, right? Even other philosophical systems vehemently protest and ridicule Advaitam, right? He say they feel that this is fully, completely to be ridiculed, saying that the whole world is, mithya, and then going and asking for bhiksha and eating, right? They laugh at the Advaitins, right? So for a layman, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, we should only give a working and understandable translation, not this, right? So what is the acceptable explanation that you can give to a layman, right? You can say that the changeless principle is Brahman and Satyam. Satyam is a changeless principle. So you can say Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So there you use Satyam, right? And he defines Satyam. Acharya defines Satyam as Yad Rupena Yad Nishchitam Padrupam Na Vyabhicharati. Tat Satyam, right? So that which remains in the same form all the time is Satyam, right? So whatever is continuously changing is Mithya. So the world is also Mithya because it is changing, right? Nobody will protest that, right? So the world is changing is an experienceable fact. So it has changed. It has, the world has changed over the last, few days, few decades. It will continue to change. Thus, for an enlightened person, the translation of Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya is Brahman is real, world is unreal. For a lay person, the working translation is Brahman is changeless and the world is ever changing. Right? This is the safest translation that he will understand or accept. So you teach Vedanta and give the second simpler translation. That is, the dream world is mithya. And after he wakes up only, he realizes that the dream world is mithya. For a waker, the dream is unreal. There is no protest. Until then, he will protest. So, aropi tasya kim arthavatta asti. So, whatever is superimposed, like rope snake or dream, whatever is projected or superimposed, right? Arthavatta means validity, independent existence or reality. Kim arthavatta asti. So, is there an independent existence or reality for a superimposed snake or for a superimposed dream or for a superimposed world? The world is superimposed, right, by Brahman on Brahman with the help of Maya, right? So, dream is Nidra superimposition. The world is Maya superimposition. So, anything projected or superimposed, Arthavatta asti kim, is it valid, right? So, it's a question. Is it valid? That is the kind of question that is asked. Adhishtanam Brahmena tata abhati. So only the adhishtanam, the base or support or substratum, the rope alone appears as snake, waker alone appears as dreamer, Brahman alone appears as the world with different names and forms. So with this last 73rd verse, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya topic is also completed. So if you remember, this is the extension number 2 of what? The response to the 7th question. Tayoho Vivekaha Kim, right? So out of that, the first 2 extensions we have completed, which is Brahma Satyam and Jagan Mithya. Now we have the last one left, right? Third and final extension, which is called the great equation between Atma and Brahman. Atma Brahma Aikyam. Equating Atma and Brahman, and that we are going to enter now. From verse 74 to 82. It is generally presented in a shloka by Shankaracharya, right? The central teaching of Vedanta as Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparah Anena Vedyam Satshastram Iti Vedanta Dindimaha. This is from Brahma Jnanavali Mala, verse 20. Right? So, 3 components of Vedantic teaching. Brahman alone is real. Jagat, the world, is unreal. Right? This is called Brahma Paroksha Jnanam. Then comes the third factor, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. So Jivaha means Jivatma or Atma. So the individual self is non-different from Brahman, the universal self, the creator of the entire world. So Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha is called the great equation, otherwise called the Mahavakyam. Now the Mahavakyams, we have hundreds of Mahavakyams. You will see plenty. But 4 Mahavakyams are taken as sample. I think I mentioned this in one of the previous classes, one each from 4 Vedas, to show that all Vedas are uniform in their central teaching. So the Rig Veda, Aitareya Upanishad Mahavakyam is Prajnanam Brahma. Yajurveda, right? One is in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Mahavakyam is Aham Brahmasmi. Samaveda, Chandogya Upanishad Mahavakyam, a very popular one is Tat Tvam Asi. And whenever Mahavakyam inquiry takes place, this is taken. Tat Tvam Asi. Tat and Tvam are 2 separate words, not a single word, right? So then you have Atharvana Veda, Mandukya Mahavakyam, which is I am Atma Brahma. So Atma Brahma Aikyam. For all these 4 Mahavakyas, this analysis is done. But here, Tat Tvam Asi Vakyam is going to be taken up for inquiry. So we'll just enter verse 74 now. Tattvam padabhyam abhidhiyamanayoh.
Tattvam padabhyam abhidhiyamanayoh.
Brahmatmano shodhitayoryaditham.
Brahmatmano shodhitayoryaditham.
Shrutya tayostattvamasiti samyag.
Shrutya tayostattvamasiti samyak.
Ekatvameva pratipadyate muhuhu.
Ekatvameva pratipadyate muhuhu.
So the Mahavakya inquiry, and here as I said, Tat Tvam Asi is taken. And this inquiry is required or necessitated because of a particular fact. So the equation is between Atma and Brahman, the individual self and the universal self, the micro and the macro self. So here we are using Atma and Brahman. So when we study the scriptures, we find that both Atma and Brahman have got two versions. What are the two versions? Naturally, we will be wondering, right? So like saying, say, one C Subramaniam, TS Subramaniam, SB Subramaniam, etc. Right? So many are there. So when you talk about Atma, which version will be there? Like which Subramaniam, right? So therefore, inquiry is required. And we should note that two versions of Atma and two versions of Brahman. What are these? We should note, right? And then only we will be able to get into the equation. Now, the two versions are Paramarthika Atma and Vyavaharika Atma. Similarly, we also have Paramarthika Brahman and Vyavaharika Brahman. So, P Atma or Paramarthika Atma, Vyavaharika Atma, P Brahman and V Brahman. So, Paramarthikam means absolute or transcendental, which is beyond time, space, action, and transaction. So, in English, absolute or transcendental, which means beyond all this. Vyavaharikam means empirical plane, which is available for transactions, and the world is empirical. So, that which is available within time and space and is associated with actions and transactions. So, that is the empirical Atma. Similarly, in Brahman also, we have empirical, right? Paramatma. So while talking about Atma, Anatma, Viveka, Acharya talked about Anatma, right? As Shariratrayam and Panchakoshas. And we said Anatma is just a costume we are wearing. So the costume is worn by whom? We said behind the costume, there is the Atma, the real self, the real I, right? And then all the costumes we negated one by one and arrived at the witness consciousness. So, in fact, you may remember verse 60, Panchanamapi koshanam nishede yuktita shrutehe tannishedavadi sakshi bodharupova shishyate. Right? So, you have to remember all these things. Otherwise, very difficult to equate this. The terms are also increasing as we go along. So, you might want to make notes and remember the terms, right? So, we discussed the features of Atma, the 5 features of Atma. Atma in its pure form, the surviving pure Atma we saw is not available for any transaction because the medium of transaction is not available, right? So that is beyond time, space, action and transaction. So that Atma is Paramarthika Atma. It cannot do anything, right? So once the Atma puts on the costume, the Karana Shariram is the foundation costume, then the Sukshma Shariram, then the Sthula Shariram, right? So like putting foundation and then makeup and all that, right? So exactly like that. So the Karana Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, Sthula Shariram, then you are fully dressed up, right? So the Paramarthika Atma is dressed up with these 3 bodies, Panchakoshas, and the same I is now available for transactions. Not only that, this once the Panchakoshas are put on, the Vesham, you have a location, you have a date of birth, etc. Right? So there is an empirical Atma which is available with costume. The dressed up Atma is basically empirical. So the costume is Shariratrayam or Panchakoshas. And this costume converts the Paramarthika Atma into Vyavaharika Atma, like Bhagavan taking avatara with Krishna body or Rama body, right? Exactly like that. And here from the incarnation is into the Vyavaharika Jiva Sharira, right? So Paramarthika Atma becomes Vyavaharika Atma. The becoming, we must note, is without undergoing any change, without losing its Paramarthika status. In the case of Bhagavan, right? He continues to be Bhagavan even when he's appearing as Rama or Krishna, etc. The original Bhagavan is not gone. So also we must remember that the Paramarthika Atma, without losing its Paramarthika status, becomes Vyavaharika Atma, performs all the Vyavahara or the transactions, right? So we have to understand these two versions of the Atma. Unfortunately, the Vyavaharika Atma alone is popular. So the lay person is not aware of, or he ignores the Paramarthika Atma, but whether he recognizes it or not, he is the Paramarthika Atma. Like even if the dreamer ignores the waker status, the dreamer is waker only. So we have ignored our Paramarthika Atma status, but we are the Paramarthika Atma, which status will recognize on waking up. Therefore, the two versions of Atma, Paramarthika Atma and Vyavaharika Atma, we must remember, right? So both these. They're very important. Now, similarly, Brahman also. Brahman has been defined in Taittiriya Upanishad as Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam Brahma. The all-pervading infinite consciousness. That is Brahman, which is not limited by time and space. That Brahman is Paramarthika Brahman, beyond time and space. Now, once Brahman is associated with a costume, the costumed Brahman becomes operational. So, in our case, it is Shariratrayam. In the case of Brahman, what is it? Right? So, the Paramarthika Brahman becomes Vyavaharika Brahman with Maya costume without losing the Paramarthikam status. Right? That is why we say Vivartam or illusory. Right? So, once the Paramarthika Brahman becomes Vyavaharika Brahman, it is called Ishvaraha. So, Vyavaharikam Atma is called Jivaha. Vyavaharika Brahman is called Ishvaraha. Jiva can act and transact. Ishvara also can act and transact because it is associated with Maya. So this is what Shankaracharya says in his Saundarya Lahari, where Maya Tattvam is described as the goddess in the very first verse. Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yati Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitum. So Shiva means Paramarthika Brahma and Shaktya here means Maya. Being Yuktaha, associated, Yadi, when he gets associated. Prabhavitum Shaktaha Bhavati. He becomes omniscient and omnipotent, capable of Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. Not ordinary power. Entire universe is created, sustained, destroyed, and resolved. Right? So, not only that, transactions with Jiva also, if you see, Jiva performs puja, Ishvara receives it, and he gives the puja phalam also. So, they are all transactions done by the Paramarthikam Brahman, or we must remember that it is done by the Paramarthika. It is done by the Vyavaharika Brahman with Paramarthika Brahman behind the Vyavaharika Brahman. Right? So, Vyavaharika Brahman is nothing but Ishvara. So, during our worldly transactions, always you must remember that Vyavaharika Atma and Vyavaharika Brahman in the form of Jiva and Ishvara are always popular. So much popular that the Paramarthikam versions are completely overshadowed, right? So Vedanta wants to unearth the overshadowed Paramarthikam versions of both Atma, the individual consciousness, and Brahman, the pure total consciousness. And we are going to unearth that. So the equation we talked about earlier is between what? Between Vyavaharika Atma, that is the Jiva, and the Vyavaharikam Brahman, the equation is never possible. Right? So, all the Agama Shastras focus only on Vyavaharika Atma and Vyavaharikam Brahman. Therefore, they confine to the differences. Whether it is Shaiva Siddhanta, right, or it is Vaishnavism, they all remain there. They just cannot even tolerate that there can be an equation between Jiva and Ishvara. They will say Ishvara will curse, right? Because it is at the Vyavaharika level. And so we should say, I am Jivaha, I am Dasaha, Bhagavan is master, Dasoham, right? So then only they feel good about it, right? So when a person comes to Advaita, right, then the Advaitin opens up and introduces the Paramarthikam Atma and the Paramarthikan Brahman, and then he talks about the Upanishad Mahavakya. See, what is that? Paramarthikam Atma, the individual consciousness, and Paramarthikam Brahman, the all-pervading consciousness. The two of them are one and the same. We don't have two consciousness. We cannot talk about the individual consciousness as a small consciousness, which is part of the total consciousness. We cannot say that because consciousness in its pure form is beyond time and space, and there is no part and whole. Both of them are one and the same, right? But it is a struggle for the guru to communicate this, right? So he says, Tat Tvam Asi. Then the student has to respond. If he understands, Aham Brahmasmi, right? Then the teacher can happily say, right? So subsequently, the Aikyam can be revealed if it comes to this, right? So Shankaracharya is basically using the Mahavakyam, which is occurring in Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter, where Brahman is named Sat, pure existence. The sixth chapter of Chandogya Upanishad is called Sat Vidya. The 7th chapter is called Bhuma Vidya, and 8th chapter is called Prajapati Vidya. So in the 8th, we get Mandukya, Vishwa Taijasa, Pragnya, Turiyam, all those we get, right? Turiya Vidya. Prajapati Vidya is basically Turiya Vidya. So here, Sat Vidya, then in Chandogya Upanishad, 6, 7, and 8, you will get Sat Vidya, Bhuma Vidya, Turiya Vidya. Of them, Sat Vidya is taken here, and there the teaching development, we should remember. Because the word Tat means that. When the teacher says Tat Tvam Asi, he uses the pronouns that and you. So in the 6th chapter of Chandogya, which has got 16 sections, the first 7 sections teach Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. And in 9 sections, 8 to 16, Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha, the Aikyam is talked about. Hopefully we will see Chandogya Upanishad if after Vivekachudamani maybe. Okay, at least to a few students who are interested, we can do this. So the teacher is Uddalaka, the student is Shvetaketu. So Uddalaka is basically father come teacher and Shvetaketu is son come disciple. And Uddalaka begins by introducing Brahman. Sadeva Saumya Idamagram Asit Ekameva Advitiyam. Before the creation, Brahman alone was there, which Brahman is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. After introducing Brahman, Uddalaka, the Guru says that Brahman alone created the whole universe. Having presented the Swarupa Lakshanam, right? That is the nature of Brahman. He then comes to the Tatastha Lakshanam. I said it is indirect statements, right? About with reference to other things, pointing out that Brahman is the cause of creation. Tadaikshata bahusyam prajaye eti tattejo sajata tatteja aikshata bahusyam prajaye eti tatapo tapyata. It goes like that, right? So that Brahman visualized to create, and it created out of itself the bhutas, the elements, the elementals, etc. Right? So this portion is covered in Chandogya Upanishad. So Brahman is introduced as Karanam Brahma, Tat Tejaha Asrijata. He created. Now that Karanam Brahman, if you ask, is it Vyavaharikam or Paramarthikam? We said Paramarthikam Brahman is beyond action, transaction, space, time, etc. Therefore, Paramarthikam Brahman cannot be the Karanam. So Karanam Brahma also has to be Vyavaharikam. And this Vyavaharika Brahman is basically the Brahman, the Paramarthika Brahman with a dress of Maya. Without the Maya costume, Brahman can never be the creator, the Karanam. Thus, Maya Sahitam Brahman, Vyavaharika Brahman, Ishvara is introduced. Then all the elements, elementals, etc. come. And then, of course, the Sthula Shariram and all of them from the elements they are born, right? Everything is created by Brahman, or here Vyavaharika Brahman or Ishvara. Therefore, Tat refers to the Vyavaharika Brahman. Then from the 8th section onwards, the teaching of Aikyam begins. Very beautiful and very, very thorough analysis here, right? So, having introduced that Brahman, the Karanam, the teacher says, Saya Eshoni Maitadatmya Idagum Sarvam Tatsatyagum Saatma Tattvamasi Shvetaketo Iti. So Brahman being the Karanam is the essence behind all the products, just as gold, the cause is the essence of all ornaments, right? So, and three examples were given: gold and golden ornaments, clay and earthenware, iron and iron products, etc. Incidentally, a nail cutter is given as an example here for the iron nail cutter, right? So that includes you also, and then the teacher is addressing the student understand himself as one who is born on a particular day, right? That kind of a jiva, right? Yatova imani bhutani jayante ena jatani jivanti, right? So in Bhriguvalli we see this. So the student also is a karyam, a product. So that karanam Brahma, the Ishvara, and you the karya jiva, asi, essentially one. Tatu tvam asi, right? So you, the Karya Jiva, are essentially none other than the Karanam Brahma, the Ishvara. And there, when the teacher says you, he is referring to the student sitting there who is Vyavaharika Atma, right? And the word you is addressed to the student, and the student happens to be in this transactional world. He has been doing Karma Yoga Sadhana, Upasana Yoga Sadhana. He has come to the teacher. All these activities are done by the Vyavaharika Atma, Jiva. Therefore, the word you in this teaching refers to this Vyavaharika Atma, and similarly, Tat refers to the creator. Therefore, when you take this equation superficially, the equation is between Vyavaharika Atma and Vyavaharika Brahman, because the whole teaching takes place in the empirical plane, right? The classes are taking place within time and space. Therefore, the equation made through Tattvamasi Mahavakyam is also between the Vyavaharika Brahman, the Ishvara, and the Vyavaharika Atma, the Jiva. It is a teaching in the Vyavaharika plane. What is the problem with this? If you take this, the equation doesn't fit. It isn't okay. Because even though everything is happening in Vyavaharikam plane, the equation is not meaningful, because how can the Vyavaharika Atma and Vyavaharika Brahman be one and the same, right? So the student must quickly remember what he has studied so far, right? So it's like before getting to the final, say, level of math, calculus, etc., right? You have learned so many things: subtraction, addition, multiplication, then your trigonometry, right? And then your differentials, all of that, right? That when by the time you get to the final differential equations or partial differential equations, you must remember everything together. Like that, our preliminaries, we have elaborately seen Panchakosha Viveka. So the student has to recollect those topics and mentally undress himself as I am not Annamaya, I am not Pranamaya, right? He has to continue to shed constantly all the way up to Annamaya, Anandamaya Kosha, he has to shed, right? Then he has to come to the pure consciousness. The fifth feature, the pure consciousness, when separated from the body, is not available for any transaction. So the Paramarthika Atma, he has to understand. He has to do it quickly if he remembers everything. If all the teachings, if they are there in the top of mind recall, then he will be able to immediately get to this meaning. And in one moment, I should mentally shed my costume and come to the Sakshi Chaitanyam, the Bodhaswarupaha. Right? Similarly, the word Tat means the Karanam. And here also, if you take Vyavaharika Brahma, the Ishvara, the equation will not fit, because we have to mentally separate the Maya. We have to quickly come to Brahman. We have to mentally separate Maya. Right? So, verses 31 to 33, we must remember. And then we have to separate Maya from him. And then Brahman becomes Paramarthika Chaitanyam. Once you have come to Paramarthika Atma and Paramarthika Brahman, the equation will sound revealing, a mind-boggling equation. So, when you take the meaning of Tvam and you as the Vyavaharika Atma, like the commonly understood meaning in English, we call it the primary meaning. Primary meaning of the word I is Vyavaharika Atma only, common parlance, right? So, the primary meaning in Sanskrit is called Vachyartaha, right? Very important. We have to remember these words. So, the Vachyartaha is the primary meaning. So, when the teacher says Tvam, The student should convert the tvam or you into I, and when he takes it as I, he should not take it as the primary meaning or vachyartha, the vyavaharika atma. He should take it as the secondary contextual implied meaning, the lakshyartha, the paramarthikam atma. Similarly, for tatu also, the vachyartha is vyavaharikam brahman. Lakshyartha is paramarthikam Brahman. Thus, while employing Mahavakyam, we have to take the Lakshyartha, and this method of understanding is called Lakshana Vrittihi. Application of the secondary meaning is called Lakshana Vrittihi. Now, again, please don't get confused. This is not Lakshanam, which we said Tatastha Lakshanam, right? And Sorupa Lakshanam. Don't get confused with this. This is Lakshana Vritti. Here, Lakshana Vritti means employment or application of the secondary meaning. When you do that, Aham Brahmasmi will be the understanding of the student. And Shankaracharya in the following portion conveys these ideas in a technical language, right? So we should remember these words, and these are all required for us to understand the subsequent verses. Vachyartha, Lakshyartha, the dressed up Atma, the undressed Atma, the dressed up Brahman, that is Maya Sahitam Brahman, and then the undressed pure Brahman. These words will be very useful for us when we are communicating, right? So, in the Chandogya Upanishad 8th chapter, student is Devendra, teacher is Brahmaji. So, what happens is Indra misunderstands the teaching and goes back a second time, misunderstands again and goes back a third time, misunderstands again and goes back a fourth time. So through all these Upanishadic stories, what they convey is don't stop with one time listening. You have to go back and repeatedly listen, right? So even philosophical systems like Vishishtadvaitam and Dvaitam have taken the same Prasthanatrayam as their source text, and still they have missed the Jiva Brahma Aikyam. In fact, they get very disturbed when you talk about Aikyam, right? So when this happens to very well-informed philosophers, right? So what to talk of ordinary people? Because it can happen. Especially in Chandogya Upanishad, the last part you can see so many times it is repeated. Why that repetition of the Mahavakyam? Because every time there is a new smaller insight which is revealed, and then you go back and you assimilate that and come back, right? So the student who comes to the Vedanta class has to prepare a lot, right? So it is not like a casual listening or listening to some Ramayana, Mahabharata stories, right? So very, very important. Now here, Brahmatmanoho tayoho ekatvam eva muhuhu samyak pratipadyate. Pratipadyate, revealed, right? What is revealed? Ekatvam eva. Ekatvam is not union, but permanent oneness, non-difference, sameness. So teacher knows that the student will have difficulty. Therefore, as I said in Chandogya, the teacher repeats this 9 times by giving different examples. Very interesting. Honey, river, tree, seed, salt, one Gandhara Purusha, so many things, right? So at the end of each one, he will say, Saya Eshoni Maitadatmi Idagum Sarvam Tat Satyam Sa Atma Tattvamasi Shvetaketo. Again and again, he will repeat, right? So in all 9 times, the same message is conveyed, and the repetition conveys the Tatparyam. So this is called Abhyasa Lingam. Basically, the Lingam shows that it is the indicatory mark, it is getting repeated so many times. Ekatvam eva pratipadyate. So what type of Brahman and Atma? Tat tvam padabhyam abhidiya manayoho. That Brahman which is referred to by the word Tat in the Mahavakyam, that you are. The pronoun that refers to Brahman. Tat tvam padabhyam. Tvam meaning you. By the word you, the Atma is referred to. Therefore, the oneness between Brahman and Atman is revealed by Ekatvam eva pratipadyate mohu. How? Tat tvam asi iti samyak shrutya. Shrutya by Shruti Vakyam, right? So, through Shruti Vakyam, right? You can, through the Shruti statement, Tat tvam asi, which is called Mahavakyam, clearly without ambiguity, samyak, ittam, in this manner, ekatvam eva pratipadyate. Therefore, the teacher is basically telling the student, you are God. Why? Because during Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, he has worshipped God so much as a high principle. And every time he says, I don't know anything, I am useless, you are my savior, right? He is looking down upon himself. Now suddenly the teacher says, you are God himself. So he might wonder, the teacher assumes that there is enough sadhana chatushtaya sampatti and shraddha in the guru so that the student can accept this. The student may be shocked to hear the statement of the teacher, yet he will think, I may not be able to swallow this initially, but let me come. I have shraddha in the guru, I have shraddha in the Veda Vakyam, I will come, I won't reject the Upanishad, and slowly, with that perseverance, I will be able to understand better, right? So, the problem with the other interpreters, right, the other philosophers is they lost faith in the Advaita Guru. They all had Advaita Guru, but they didn't have the patience to stay with the Guru, and they started different interpretations, right? So I continue to be a helpless individual, and they will say in Moksha also, you will go to Vaikunta, Kailasha, etc. You can continue to serve the Lord there, and you will be very close to the Lord, but you will continue to be small and insignificant, right? So, but Vedanta doesn't say that. It says, you think you are insignificant? No, I want to tell you that you are the only significant one. If you persevere with patience, you can analyze the Mahavakyam and you can understand and assimilate it, right? So, you see here, Shodhita Yoho, right? That is a very crucial word. The equation between Jiva and Ishvara is talked about in the Mahavakyam. Shodhita Jiva and Shodhita Ishvara, cleansed, purified, filtered, right? That's a very important adjective here. Jiva must be put in a sieve and filtered. Ishvara also must be put in a sieve and filtered. The filtered, the Shodhitam ones can be equated, right? So wave is equal to ocean. If somebody says, initially you will feel shocked, but essentially both are water only, right? So if you understand the Lakshyartha of wave, it is water. Lakshyartha of ocean is also water, right? So wave and ocean are essentially one and the same. You have come to the Advaita Jnanam. So the removal of Nama Rupa is called filtering. Here also Shodhita Yoho Brahmatmanoho. The filtered Jiva and Ishvara Ekatvam Eva Pratipadyate. Aikyam Pratipadyate. Right? This is basically a Sankshepa Vakya or Sutra Bhuta Shloka, we say. It is going to be elaborated in the subsequent verses, right? So, I think let us stop here because this itself is quite heavy. We'll take this up in the next class. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.